Good day, everyone. This is Teacher William.
This is Teacher LAICA.
This is Teacher HAZEL. This is Teacher AIRA. This is Teacher DAPHNIE.
And
Welcome to the study of Study.
Good day to each and everyone. I am Sweet Mercado from Study Hub 6. So in this discussion, I will be your little teacher, your teacher LAICA for today. So in this discussion, which is entitled Organization and Management Learner Centered, the viewers or the intended learning outcomes of the viewers are expected to identify various forms of learner-centered organization based on learners' needs. Number 2, formulate classroom procedures and routines that promotes discipline, fairness, respect, and care among learners and encourage learning. Number 3, design, organize, and explain the significance of the layout of the physical structure of the classroom of active engagement of learners, individually or in groups, in exploration and discovery, hands-on and self-learning activities. Number 4, describe the roles and responsibilities of the teachers and the learners for supportive, inspiring, motivating, and productive learner-centered classroom. And for the last one, it evaluate which disciplinary actions are positive and non-violent in the management of learner-centered. So as we formally begin with our discussion, let me introduce to you the topic, which is the physical setup. So what is physical setup? So physical setup significantly influence teaching style and student thinking, promoting a conducive learning environment that enhances effective teaching and learning. So number 1, we have the room structuring. For individualized learning, establish individualized learning centers or stations for students to work their own pace, focusing on their abilities and interests, and create an individual work area. For group learning, for cooperative learning, which is which is the teachers allow students to cooperate with their peers, arrange them around tables or desks, clusters, or in groups of four. Teachers gives them instruction to have their groupings to their peers so that they can have a cooperative learning system through their classmates or from their groups. We have also for frequent full group discussion. Try a circle or U-shape that's the configuration where everyone has a front row sit. So in frequent whole group discussion, the best strategy here to structure the sitting arrangement of the students is U-shaped task and front row and circle, which all the students can face into their classmates or into their another peers. Lastly, we have activity oriented classroom. Set up a large table for cooperative projects. Provide a space for wet or messy projects. So if you have an activity inside of your classroom, it is good if you set up a large table and separate the wet space or the messy projects where the students can still have a clean place for them to have their finished activities. Second, we have classroom routines and procedures. In classroom routines and procedures, as we can see that every time that a teacher that that enters a classroom definitely gives their routines, their procedures, and how you how a first day of the class started, or as long as the teachers enters the room, how you act, how you greet them. So that's how routines that comes in through every situation in the classroom. So first of the consistent classroom routines. That's what I am saying, that every time that the teachers enters the room, so it is a routine for a student to greet him or her, such as attention, homework, correction, um, self examination, visual, miss lessons, break time, and desk cleaning. Maintain order and allow teachers to concentrate on instruction. So, as you observe, no, from the examples, that this is the routine um, that we daily that we daily adopt every time, like in elementary, in our high school days, and senior high school days. This is the routines that we have inside of the classroom. We have the attendance. Sometimes if the teachers gives us a homework, of course, before we proceed to another topic, we checks our homeworks, or we checks through those people that miss from their lessons, who is absent, diba? So in establishing routines, it is not that difficult. Why? For teachers who are strict and non-negotiating, establishing it is because that those strict teachers has an impact through the students. The students may say that this teacher is strict, so we must follow them. So if you are a strict teacher and you give them routines, they will put it into their head and they will do it eventually every day. So that's why with the teachers that is strict, that it's not difficult for them to give instruction or to give a daily routines, because the students that they were giving it is applying it, or it's adapting it. So establishing a routine sends a message to the student that they should cooperate in maintaining order in the classroom. According to Erlinda D. Serrano and Anna Ruby M. Reyes. Classroom events that can be routinized are the following. So this is the classroom routines that we can routinize. So first, we're getting the attention of the students to respond to a particular question or action. So if you're giving classroom routine, so the students have the idea that every time that the teacher should ask a question, that the pupils or the students should have their reactions or should answer the question. Second, correcting homeworks in class. So this is the daily routine that teacher does, especially if they give on homework a day before. So before they begin through the discussion, as what I've said earlier, they first check in through their attendance. Excusing. It is also a routine that the students shows respect to the teachers. They raise their hand for an excuse, diba? Or if they were absent, it is also a respect for a teacher to, or to give an excuse letter to the teacher. So it is a routine eventually, from as we can observe that it is from starting from our elementary through this year. So we are still doing the excuse letters, excusing someone or yourselves through the classes. So oneself from class for emergency purpose, or use of the comfort room of post or for the comfort room. So, di ba, we have routines also in excusing ourselves in using comfort rooms, like, or in emergency calls. We tend to raise our hands and ask properly permission to our professors or to our teachers that being that that is inside in the class. We have also the posting of visual aids on the board. So it is a routine for a teacher, especially in a high school teacher, to post a visual aid on the board. For syempre, since PowerPoint is not existing or still not known for a teacher, so they put visual aids in the board. It is a routine. It is a routine, especially in our elementary, diba? So we are not using PowerPoint, so it is a routine for them to put a visual aid upon entering the room. So we have also updating oneself of the lessons when absent in class. So as we observe also know, as if there is a student that absents in class, the teacher approaches him or her and asks for the previous lessons. Of course, it is the responsibility of the students to catch up with the lessons. Also, you have going out of the room during break time. It is also a routine that is it is also a routine that before break time, especially in a high school, we should wait for a signal or a go signal for our teachers to so that we will have our break time. So it is also a routine that we are being adopting. We have also the clearing the table and desk after performance of the task. So this is an important routine through in in our class, especially if you have our daily activities that involves materials that it could have the possibility to have them mess up the room. So teachers or instruct the students to clean with their mess. So it is a routine in the house or in even in the classroom. We have the clay go routine. So play as you go, or after the activity, the table should be clean or the area it should be cleaned so that the other teacher that will use the room it's clean. Okay. So swapping of partners and discussion or forming participatory groups. So of course it is the routine that every time that we will have a grouping, we will have a randomly groupings to these students so that it will not be a bias. So in here I would possibly say that it is a teacher centered that the teacher um, chooses the groups or it is randomly, I guess. So it's the fairness. So if you have the randomly groupings with the students, so I think it is fairness from them. Um, Reporting and sharing of responses. Of course, it is a daily routine that we will have the reporter a day to day and asking or shared or ask students to share their responses from the discussion. So that was all the that was all the routinized classroom events in in my discussion, which is the physical setup. We have the room structuring, we have for group learning, for frequent whole, for activity oriented, and you have also the classroom routine and procedure. So as a conclusion, this classroom routines and procedures and physical setup is that important as a teacher and as a student for us to know our responsibilities each through each other. So that will be all for my discussion. I hope you've learned something, especially through the classroom routines and procedures and through our physical setup. So for us to delve well to our discussion, let me welcome to you, teacher Reyes, for another discussion. That will be all for my discussion. Bye.
Thank you, Teacher Laika. Thank you, everyone. I am William Reyes from BS at English 1A. In this discussion, I will going to discuss you about the 5 effective strategies to motivate students, especially to our learners, as a learner-centered principle. In aligning to this in the context for the learner, for the teaching learner-centered principle, first we have the encouraging and recognizing students' effort in terms in defining the encouraging and recognizing students' effort, defined the word encouragement that involves the providing a positive reinforcement to boost this confidence, or should I say to boost the motivation of students. Why it simply matters, especially to our learner-centered student, especially to our student perform to a better when they feel appreciated and supported by the said learning teaching method. It is somehow to help them to boost their confidence upon learning the learner-centered principle. These strategies provide a regular praise and constructive feedback to our students and learners, recognized in terms of both effort, in terms achievement, and foster a classroom culture of a respect and encouragement to everyone, especially to our learners. And it's important for us as a future educator to have a engagement toward proper foster a positive learning to our students. Second, we have students' involvement and ownership. It's somewhat defined as a active and participations towards to our learners. Means with engaging students in terms of their learning, the process that this learning-centered principle through a responsibility to our learners to have a decision making despite the learning engagement. It matters when students have a sense in terms of their ownership, how they learn towards by their own self. They are more committed in terms how they learn by themselves. And it's a one way for us to test our learners, or should I say our students, in terms of their learning competencies. This strategies talks assigning a leadership roles to our learner who are engaging in this type of learner-centered principle. These class discussions made a foster a leadership project coordinator and peer mentorship. This empower our leadership engaging by ourselves towards to a learning and a productive engagement by ourselves. Thirdly, we have using incentives to motivate learning. So this is familiar for everyone, which is the two types of category in motivating students. Learning through motivating. Incentives provide external motivation through rewards, recognition, or privilege. Why it matters for our learners in terms of learning? It helps students stay focused and motivated to reach their dream out of their learning. It's somehow that giving a motivation to our learners by learning centered principle. It's somehow it gives them a motivation towards in achieving their dream. As a future educator, it's important for us to have this kind of strategy as an implemented at a point of system or reward program. By this strategy, it encourages our learner to give the more that they can offer in terms of learning. Those are methods in their learning style, how they learn through their motivation. This encourage our students, or should I learner-centered principles, to be more confident in terms of their learning. Fourthly, we have encouraging creativity and dynamic learning. From the word encourage with creativity and a dynamic learning. It defines by using a diverse, engaging teaching method to prevent monotony. We all know that we engage into a diverse learner in a learner-centered principle. Why it matters for us as a future educator to have this method in terms of a variety in teaching that keeps students interested and motivated. Those strategies that is incorporated, such as the games, storytelling, debates, and other some interactive participation, or should I say engagement, on how they delivered their lessons towards to the students. And it's somehow we use the power on multimedia such as the videos, infographics, and simulations that help us embrace the power of technology. And it's important for us as a future educators to have this kind of strategy in helping our student in terms of learner centered, because they are the fountain of knowledge, not just in aiming for a smooth smooth transition of knowledge by their teacher and student. Last but not the least, the connecting learner to real life application. And it's important for us as a future educator that our learning be applied in real life situation. This defines that relating subject matter into a real world experience in practical use and in a critical use. And it's important for us as a future educator that we delivered our learnings through a real life situation. Why it matters? Learning becomes meaningful when students see it to a relevance towards to the real life situation. This strategy uses a case study that a real world that examine the example of encourage in motivating the students in terms of learning, such as can improve through the problem solving related to the daily life and careers, how they engage themselves towards the real situations in applying those contexts or those theories in learning in a real life situation. In aligning those strategies in the role of teaching in a learner-centered classroom. It defines the teacher that we as a future teacher, we shift from being a teacher inside the classroom and a facilitator inside a classroom. This source of knowledge not just meant for us as a teacher, but nor as a facilitator of learning. We are not just as teachers inside the classroom, but we are guiding them to their smooth learning towards to the discussion. These responsibilities guides from further discussions to instead of leading them, not totally to give them the context of learning, but also to guide them, to provide them the structure without controlling them in every aspect of learning. That's how we allow our students to engage learning towards by their own aspect of understanding. It is important for us how to adopt this kind of method in teaching, because as a future educator, we are not just engaging ourselves to our students by giving them what is in the written context in the book, but nor we are giving them how to guide them in terms of how to be a leader by their own self, in terms of a leader, how to they gain their knowledge by their own perspective. Secondly, we have the role of the students in terms in a learner-centered method of learning. In a classroom where there are no teachers, but we have a facilitator. And this aligning to the students take the responsibility by their own learning. It aligns the learner-centered principles, their own learning through their own engagement in their self-assessment. It aligns the learner-centered to a teaching-centered principle. It's somehow give the responsibility to participate actively in terms of discussion, lessons, in terms of a project. Make a choice about the how they learn out of their beds. It's somehow it's a learning process by the learner, how they engage themselves in terms of a learning a context without a teacher, but because we are a learner-centered teaching style. This collaborative effort with the teacher, with the facilitator, with the guidance of facilitator, and also with the students from the learner-centered, it also a collaborative effort by engaging the learner towards to their discussion to have a progress and collaborative learning by the principals. Here are some methods of a learner-centered principle. Project-based learning. It's defined as a student where the driven of approach where learning occurs through our own real-world projects. It aligns by our own real-life application. We engage our learning by our real-life situation. Just for instance, students develop a campaign to raise awareness about the said climate change. It's a real-life situation on which we learn how to engage the real-life learning towards to the real-life situation. And that's how we align our learning to our real-life situation. Secondly, we have the service learning. From the word service learning, it is a method where students or learners that apply academic skills through the community service. Actually, it is something that what we gain and knowledge by our learning, we apply it to our community by as a service. Just for instance, organizing a tutoring program for young students, or it simply means having this kind of seminars where we allow ourselves to teach our young generation out there, to give them the knowledge that they want to learn from our own real situation. Thirdly, we have the internship and experiential learning. It depends hands-on and in terms of experiences in real world settings that reinforce a classroom learning. Somehow, by our own experience, we gain a lot of knowledge more than just in the context of the book. But I believe that someone says that experience is the best teacher. We learn from our own experience. That's why it is very evident by through our experience we can apply a classroom learning towards to a classroom engagement towards to a community learning. Fourthly, we have inquiry-based and collaborative learning. From our question to raising a collaborative learning, it defines to those students having this learning that is driven a question and a group problem solving. You might wonder that there are some students who keep on question because they are inquiring more knowledge through question. We learn from question because those are curious of students in terms how they create their understanding towards a simple context. Just for an instance, a group of students conducting a research in a social issues and presenting to the findings as well being discussed in the panelists. So we have this kind of research that we are using for us to find solution in every problem that we are facing right now. That's why research, those students are being conducted to research, are they seeking for answers despite all the problems, that the difficulty that they may encounter through the process of conducting a research. So those are the methods on how we learn in a learning-centered principles as a learner-centered student. In my conclusion, I would like to emphasize the learning method in a learner-centered principle in applying the teacher-learner-centered method in a context of classroom discussion, in engaging them on the learning despite all the circumstances that our students are facing today in this generation. So those are the important key points on applying learner-centered method. Those are part of the pedagogies. In my conclusion, I would like to highlight those methods that imply important role in terms of learner-centered principle. First one is to keep us motivated by our own learning. Second, we apply learning by real-life situations. We apply it into a real-life applications. Thirdly, we engage ourselves not just in a learning by in a context, but also we intend it to be to deliver it into a community where it turns into a services. Lastly, we have these methods on which we allow our learners just to embrace the changes between the methods of a learner-centered principle. Those are the pedagogies in learning on terms of learning in terms of individual learner-centered principle. In aligning to this, the context of the in our course, it is important for us as a future educators. We should also explore another method of learning, because a learner always a diverse learner students. We intend to deliver them the knowledge that they deserve, not just in the context of books, but also in a real life situation that also lead us to their experiences throughout their journey. So once again, I am Teacher William, and I hope you learned something about me. My other co-teacher will be Teacher HAZEL Romero to discuss further about the Module 3.
A pleasant day, my learners. I am Teacher Hazel, and for my third topic in PED 5, I will be discussing about the learner-centered classroom, roles, and responsibilities. So, without further ado, let's get the learning going. A learner-centered classroom shifts the focus from the teacher to the student, which emphasizes active engagement, self-directed learning, and real-world applications. This approach requires changes in the roles and responsibilities of both educators and students compared to the traditional teacher-centered model. Starting off with the teacher's roles and responsibilities. For number 1, we have recognize and accommodate different learning modalities. So understanding that students learn in different ways like visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and adjusting teaching strategies accordingly. Number 2, provide structure without being overly directive, offering guidance and support while allowing students the flexibility to explore and make decisions. Number 3, listen to and respect each learner's point of view, encouraging open discussions and valuing diverse perspectives in the classroom. Number 4, encourage and facilitate learners' shared decision-making. Allowing students to have a say in their learning process fosters responsibility and engagement. And lastly, for number 5, help learners work through difficulties by asking open-ended questions, guiding students to think critically and independently by prompting them to find their own solutions rather than providing direct answers. Moving on to the learners' roles and responsibilities, we have number 1, which are active participants in their own learning, taking initiative, engaging in discussions, and applying concepts to real-world situations. Number 2, make decisions about what and how they will learn, encouraging student autonomy in choosing topics and methods that align with their interests and learning styles. Number 3, construct new knowledge and skills by building on current knowledge, applying prior understanding to develop deeper insights and competencies. Number 4, understand expectations and use self-assessment measures, reflecting on their progress and identifying areas for their improvement. Number 5, monitor their own learning to develop strategies for success. So learning to set goals, track achievements, and adapt study habits for better outcomes. With the teachers' and learners' roles and responsibilities now out of the way, let us now move on to authentic learning. So when we say authentic learning, this involves engaging with real-world problems and tasks, which emphasizes application over memorization. It encourages students to connect classroom concepts with practical experiences, making learning more meaningful and relevant. So I have some real-life examples of learner-centered approaches, starting off with number 1, which is project-based learning, where students work collaboratively on projects addressing real-world issues, such as climate change or local community problems. They research, plan, execute, and present their findings. An example is a group of students develops a recycling initiative for their school and tracks its environmental impact over time. Number 2, we have service learning, where students engage in community service, applying their knowledge and skills to address social issues. An example is high school students tutor younger children in underserved communities as part of their education coursework. Number 3, we have internships, where we are providing students with real-world work experience in professional environments where they apply academic knowledge. An example, a business student interns at a local company, helping with marketing strategies and customer engagement. Number 4, we have experiential learning, where hands-on learning through activities, simulations, and field experiences. An example is science students conduct lab experiments to test hypotheses rather than just reading about scientific principles. Next, we have inquiry-based learning, which is where we encourage students to ask questions, explore topics, and conduct research to find answers. An example will be in a history class, students investigate the causes of a historical event by analyzing primary sources and presenting their conclusions. And lastly, for number 6, we have collaborative learning, where students work together on assignments, share ideas, and learn from each other's perspectives. An example for that will be a literature class divides into groups to analyze different themes in a novel and then presents their insights to the class. To conclude, a learner-centered classroom promotes critical thinking, problem-solving, collaboration, and real-world application. By shifting from passive learning to active participation, Students become more engaged, independent, and prepared for future challenges. So that sums up my third topic for PED 5, which are learner-centered classroom, roles, and responsibilities. So I hope you learned something, and thank you for listening. So the next topic to be discussed by teacher AIRA BAGLIS. That will be all, and thank you.
Classroom routines and procedures. So the role of discipline in learner-centered classroom. So number 1, we have collaborative class norms. So always starts with the basics. Every class should have a short list of class rules or norms that develop together, positively praised. Developing this list as a group allows students to see the why behind the rules and buy into how they are enforced. Create 3 to 5 rules that tell everyone that they should do or not what they shouldn't do. The teacher's job is to facilitate the development of the list, not to develop it yourself. So work on how you praise and narrow these rules. So collaborative class norms are a set of positively praised rules developed together as a class. Instead of focusing on what students shouldn't do, these norms outline what they should do. So by creating these norms together, students understand the reasoning behind them and take ownership of their classroom environment. Teacher facilitates the discussion but does not dictate the rules. So for example, respect each other, listen when others speak, and use kind words. The second example, take responsibility for your actions. Own up to mistakes and work to fix them. Number 3, stay engaged and try your best. Participate in discussions and give your best effort. So number 2, logical consequences. So logical consequences are disciplinary actions that are intended to teach students to make better behavior choices rather than to punish them. So one of the best ways to teach our students is to accept responsibility and is to use logical consequences. Logical consequences teach students the hows and whys of a good decision, rather than making them feel sorry for the making of bad choice. So the question is, why do logical consequences work so well? When the consequences is related, reasonable, and delivered respectfully, the student can make the connection with their own behavior and is less likely to resist or deny responsibility. So the goal of logical consequences is to help students develop internal understanding, self-control, and a desire to follow the rules. Logical consequences are respectful of the child's dignity, while punishment often calls upon an element of shame. Make sure that your consequences are connected to the misbehavior. Students don't learn from consequences that feel spiteful or unpredictable. Logical consequences are discipline strategies that help students learn from their mistakes rather than just feel punished. These consequences are related to the misbehavior, reasonable in their application, and respectful of the student's dignity. They help students take responsibility and develop self-control rather than feeling ashamed or resentful. Example situations: number 1, a student spills water on the floor and walks away. Instead of scolding, the teacher asks the student to clean it up, reinforcing responsibility. And the last example is, a student misuses art supplies by drawing on the desk. Instead of losing recess, the logical consequence is to clean the desk and be reminded about proper material use. So that would be all about my topic. So the next topic will be discussed by teacher Daphne.
Thank you so much, Teacher Ira. Good day, students. I am Teacher Daph, so I will be the one who will discuss to you the 3 types of logical consequences. So, what is logical consequences? So, these are disciplinary actions that are intended to teach students to make better behavior choices rather than to punish them. So, they are used to help children learn from their action and take responsibility for their behavior. So logical consequences are different from punishment. So there are 3 major categories of logical consequences. So the first is solving problems.
This means that when a child does something wrong, they are given a chance to fix it. This helps them learn to take responsibility for their action. So instead of simply punishing a child for their action, logical consequence aim to help them to understand the impact of their choices and learn how to fix the problem they created. So for instance, if a child spills their juice, they can help clean it up. The next category is losing privileges. So this means taking away something enjoyable that the child usually gets to do. So this helps them understand that actions have consequences. So this type of logical consequences is used when a children's behavior does not meet pre-established expectations. So for example, if a child doesn't finish their homework, they might miss out on watching their favorite TV show. And the third category is the timeout. So timeout means putting a child in a boring place for a few minutes to correct a misbehavior. So it is the most effective consequence or discipline technique for misbehavior into 2 to 5-year-old children. Every parent needs to know how to give a timeout. So timeout teaches a child to stop and think. So for instance, if you are at home, you might ask your child to come and sit near you, away from toys or other children. So this helps them gives your child a break from other people or activities, as well as a short consequence for their misbehavior. So that would be all for my topic. I hope you learned something from our lesson. Thank you for tuning in.